Oh. Oh. I don't know what I'm doing. Holy.
So I have no idea what this video is about.
I kinda know, because I looked at the first, like, half a minute. That's it. That's all I know.
Oh, yeah. And I'll give you guys plenty of time to make the switch. Yeah, I promise. Okay.
There's, like...
You got sticks? Yeah, I got it. I'll take you down a bit. Do it. Yeah. Wait, no, like bop. Yeah. Like bop, yeah.
Dog, I can't read that.
Yeah, I ain't
Masked
reading that.
Dancers was an incredible trial run for us because we quickly disliked it so much that we had basically figured out everything not to do. When you publish music, you gotta live with it.
Oh, it's him!
No.
Dude, I love this guy. We were both 16 at one point.
What? He was 16?
Yeah.
That was 5 years ago.
I know there are likely a fair amount of people watching this video that are not 16 yet. That feels like a cheese grater against my brain. In retaliation, I will impart the horrible conscience on my adolescent audience that everything you are currently doing will likely constantly resurface as the best times of my life, and no matter what you do, you will absolutely look back and hate the person you are now. I find it interesting that we can look back at our past selves and be filled with humiliating intrusions and positively tinted wistfulness, the mental landmarks of which may have been established mere minutes apart from each other. Seems like the past is only good if we make it good. I will not be discussing much of the musical content of Masked Dancers here. I don't think you need to have even heard about it in passing before watching. In fact, it might be more in line with this video's themes if you don't have any prior knowledge about the album. I definitely will not pull the classic video essayist move of telling you to go check it out before continuing the rest of the video, knowing full well you're just letting that playback bar at the bottom move along unperturbed. Nothing I say is capable of making you have any of the same connections to this album that I do. I don't have some grand conclusion at the end that makes it some objective 10 out of 10 masterpiece. I'm mostly using this album as an overarching centerpiece to all of the other thoughts I will deck of cardsly spread out. Different pieces of art are inseparably linked with a multitude of my life's experiences, as I imagine is the case for most everyone else. And what you take from this smorgasbord of meandering ideas is also something I have no major purpose for. If you're expecting some Pitchfork-esque review, I hope you can recalibrate your expectations before leaving a comment saying this isn't what I clicked for, or that this was a waste of time. Wasting time is what I do best. So with enough telling you why you shouldn't watch this video, let's continue. Masked Dancers, concerned in so many things you forget where you are, is an intentionally vague album, but one I've always connected with the idea of change, of being frightened by that change, though inevitably being forced to overcome it. Deconstructing the title, I see the latter part directly confronting a particular notable change, describing a sensation of pure helplessness and losing touch with oneself caused by a magnitude of stressors this change has presented. Masked Dancers could then refer to a happy front put on to masquerade any inner turmoil. It also makes the album just that little bit harder to search for due to the TV show of the same name. Frankly, I listen to music almost entirely for the pleasing sounds packaged beneath any presentation, so I couldn't be bothered to attempt any thematic exploration from why the album cover is rotated 90 degrees or why two of the songs are in parentheses. So why do I claim this as my favorite album of all time if I'm so unwilling to actually think about it? I listened to it when I was most emotionally vulnerable to sad white person music. This video is actually a remake of a scrap project where I've tried to go in depth with each individual song on the album.
Nice.
And I realize I just don't have anything valuable to say about the music itself. I've learned the distinction between music I like and music I don't like really just comes down to if the sounds sound good. And the sounds on this album make my brain pretty happy. I don't need to use up an additional 2 hours of your time just trying to describe the album when you can like listen to it. I don't think anyone, let alone me, is capable of combining words well enough to stand in for a first-hand experience. Regardless, I figure I should probably give some sort of overview to the project I'm going to be circulating around. I've never gotten too caught up in genre specifics, though Masked Dancers loosely fits into Midwest emo and math rock. The album is wondrously diverse with its instrumentation and influences. Frantic, dense sections blending seamlessly into spacey synth interludes, unhinged drumming, relentlessly fun and complex guitar lines, samples from Akira, one that notoriously repeats for the vast majority of a 4-minute song, Adam's vocals bursting with passion, if I may. A lot of people say this guy sounds like SpongeBob.
Oh,
No.
I can't just find authentic perceptive dilemma.
Jesus Christ.
He definitely
does not.
Masked Dancers is an album that I've carried with me for around 4 years now, listening to it more times than I've decided to count. Over those 4 years and uncounted re-listenings, it has perpetually grown on me. In fact, upon first listen, I actually preferred Just Got Back from the Discomfort, We're Alright, the follow-up album released 9 months later. My favorite pieces of media being ones I didn't initially love is a fairly common theme. These 10 songs have always existed in a corner of the music libraries of my computer and phone, acting as an immortal, unchanging shoulder to rest my head on. They've comforted me with the same vibrations whether I'm basking in the warm sun of life or struggling through a Midwest winter, metaphorically and literally. It seems only natural that an album about change would be beneficial in helping me as a listener confront change of my own. Even a lone tree needs more than just strong roots to survive. My favorite things are those which allow me to feel larger than life upon every revisiting. Works that feel like the awakening scents wafting from a morning bakery, the slow-moving, no chance of rain noontime clouds, the sunset glow drenching the sky a magically saturated orange-purple gradient, the neon lights brilliantly painting a midnight city. Whenever I revisit the evocative melodies of I See It Too, the beautiful piano of A Map of the Stars, the infinite soundscapes of Born Again So Many Times You Forget You Are, the frenzied drumming of Underground, the impenetrable madness of It's a Lie, It's Seamless, the shout-along frenzy of every lyric, the perfection of every track, I feel alive, and I feel everything. Transcendentalism condensed into a 49-minute, forever re-experienceable auditory journey. And sometimes at the close of the last song, thoughts trickle their way into my conscious, as they irritatingly do, when I don't have some ear-blasting distraction sedating my mind. Why this album? Is this really that good? Is this really #1 top favorite of all time? Someone asks me for an album I like, and this is probably what I reply with. Is there nothing more? Each question adding to the reverberations of a desire to continue elsewhere. A journey of scouring every virtual square inch of the internet possible, of Indiana Jonesing my way through countless obscure and underrated lists, compiling my own adventure log in the process. And much like the travels of any explorer, it might interest you to tell you what I've seen. As of recording, I've listened to over 7,500 albums.
Wow.
And for this video, I wanted to go back and re-observe all of the jewels of emo I'd found, from the invaluably treasured diamonds to rocks I wouldn't even break a window with. I got sodas and didn't go to space with the homesick musings of the world is a beautiful place and I am no longer afraid to die whenever if ever. I remembered the similarly excessively long named Suffocate for F***'s Sake, blazing fires and helicopters on the front page of the newspaper, There's a War Going On and I'm Marching in Heavy Boots. I wrote haikus about cannibalism in your yearbooks. Awake but still in bed's what people call low self-esteem is really just seeing yourself the way that other people see you. And, of course, Captain Jazz's Burritos, Inspiration Point, Forked Balloon, Sports Cards in the Spokes, Automatic Biographies, Kites, Kung Fu, Trophies, Banana Peels we've slipped on and eggshells we've tippy-toed over. I got cold from the reeking basements where Harrison Bergeron's Dead Bergeron and Non Plus Ultra's Self-Titled were recorded in. I warmed up again with the twinkly autumn beauty of Everyone Asked About You's Self-Titled. there were a lot of bands that had self-titled releases. I re-listened to plenty of albums that I had zero recollection of ever having listened to, some of which I kind of wish I hadn't. I went through the 5 folders in my music library, all called Demo, projects from Algernon Cadwallader, Eerie, Howard the Duck, Old Problems, and The Brave Little Abacus. I reacquainted myself with the rest of the Brave Little Abacus' discography, from the split with Matt Aspinwall I had long since pushed aside, to the equally forgotten about by me Okame. I could go on. I also listened to any album which did not appear in my Rate Your Music collection search for emo, yet which still felt emotionally driven and could have affected me in the same way Masked Dancers did. I limited myself to albums I had previously rated at least 4 stars, which marks an active enjoyment at the time of listening, and this limitation was so the video you're currently watching had any possibility of getting its script finished. I would have just listened to thousands of albums again. I naturally started with Car Seat Headrest's twin fantasy Mirror to Mirror, the longtime reigning champ of the prestigious #1 spot before being quietly figure 4 leg locked by Masked Dancers. In fact, I listened to the entire discography of Car Seat Headrest again, given Will Toledo's complete sovereignty over my adolescent music discovering and self-discovering mind. I also discographically journeyed through the eclectic yet nonetheless consistently emotional Fishmans, including their landmark live album 98-12-28 Otokotachi no Wakare. I took to folk, including Midair Thief's Crumbling, to ambient and noise, including Heaven's Emperor's Teenage Poetry, to black metal, including Ash Bohr and Fell Voice's Self-Titled and Paysage de Ivers' Self-Titled. There were a lot of bands that had self-titled releases. I re-experienced Godspeed You Black Emperor, Swans, Neutral Milk Hotel, Dos, The Microphones. Probably ended up re-listening to that entire Mew chart. I reacquainted with some personal favorites, including Cocteau Twins' Heaven or Las Vegas and The Trees in the Wild Zaman Zaman. I could go on. In the process of this exercise, many an album caught my attention that I had not previously listened to. I decided not to listen to them for this, at the very least mentally putting them aside for a potential dessert course, as I was already starting to feel full off of breadsticks. And what did I discover at the end of this mineral reassessment? Well, Masked Dancers samples Akira pretty noteworthily, so I should probably rewatch Akira. And so I rewatched Akira, and just got back from the discomfort where All Right samples Malcolm in the Middle pretty noteworthily, so I should probably watch Malcolm in the Middle. And so I watched Malcolm in the Middle. Though, only the first season. It was alright. TV shows have a hard time gripping me, past the first episode even, given their at times monstrous length. So for a show to get me to its second season, it's gotta be like real good. You know, same reason I've tapped out of Final Fantasy VII like 4 different times. I want to play it. I just don't have any attention span. What was I talking about? And what did I discover at the end of this extended mineral reassessment? I definitely still put Masked Dancers as my #1 for reasons mostly related to personal emotional connections. But more than that, I enjoyed retraversing old ground that was once unfamiliar territory. It had been so long since I had listened to some of these albums that I might as well have been discovering them for the first time again. Since 2015, I had loved what I since recently referred to as electronic spelunking, donning a pair of headphones in lieu of a miner's helmet and squeezing my way through Soulseek downloads in lieu of the abject horrors of any real cave. I took incredible amounts of joy from finding what was out there. Popular or grossly obscure, recent or decades old, whatever the case, the seemingly infinite scope of the internet provided equally near endless entertainment out of finding entertainment. Granted, I don't think I listened to anything emo until roughly 2018. I definitely didn't start habitually using Rate Your Music until April 20th, 2019, and I didn't even know what Soulseek was until sometime in 2021. But searching for that new thing has been an eternal flame burning since I learned what Vaporwave was during my summer break as a 13-year-old. As I became a teenager, my internet usage became increasingly unrestrained, and inevitably so was the depth of my virtual pursuing increasing. When I found the Vaporwave Essentials Guide Ultra Edition and started making a YouTube playlist of all of the albums that weren't limited to this mysterious website called Bandcamp, the seeds to my obsession had been planted, watered, and borne fruit in a single instant. The sweetness of that fruit clung to my human primal instincts. forever a hunter-gatherer of the 21st century. Over these 8 years of internet rummaging and music listening, there's been a lot of minor indications that point towards an interesting notion I've figured out regarding the more obscure of my multimedia discoveries. And that's that I like things that are obscure. Please do not confuse my enjoyment of the non-mainstream for a sense of elitism, that I think I'm a better person because I can name drop a project you definitely need to have some sort of problem to know about. Anyone who believes in a sense of superiority from gatekeeping great art does not deserve to be included in any discussion regarding art. What I find interesting in my simple revelation is more in the why. Why become infatuated with albums you need to traverse a labyrinth of internet alleyways to learn about? Why become infatuated with artists who have no trace of even existing? Small town bands that broke up after 2 months in an EP, home recordings from whatever equipment the artist had lying around, hyperlink graveyards and resultless searches, and even outside the field of music, solo video creators toiling away on passion projects in hope that someone will notice their blade of grass in the expansive field of online content, deciding to learn a language to dive deeper into forgotten digital expressions of the 90s. I bring a sort of torrents and sketchy websites vibe to the conversation of media consumption that what streaming services that on people don't really like. From what I've seen regarding the general interest in lost media and liminal spaces, I don't think this is a question I really need to answer. So let me tell you a short anecdote. Oftentimes, I will open a new tab and head to YouTube purely out of boredom. No plans to watch a video, nor to want to watch a video. Window shopping, but with thumbnails. One of these times, a video actually caught my attention enough to not just close the tab and repeat the process again 5 minutes later. I don't know what it was about PS2 Disney Golf Channel no commentaries video that struck me, but something clearly did. I had begun to open a most bizarre can of worms. The screen capture footage you're currently viewing is a bit different than what I had initially experienced due to the unfortunate fragility of online content. Though at one point, this channel had provided almost daily uploads of playing one hole or another in Disney Golf Kurashiku for the PS2. It had been doing this for several years. What it was about this one average game that looks like it was designed exclusively to be a Christmas present from an aunt, destined to become an, oh yeah, I played that when I was a kid, near hallucination of a memory that struck this particular game player so deeply,
Chinese stock.
I do not know,
thing.
but they clearly had in some way. In search of some semblance of an answer, I checked the channels tab,
Like a
where
mascot.
2 subscriptions peeked out at me. The first one appeared to be the owner's second channel, home to army figures and Lego stop-motion animations, and a lot of shorts of him touching the tail of his goat set to different music. The second appeared to be mostly unrelated. That was until I scrolled down the videos tab and Disney Golf. And so I played Disney Golf Kurashiku for the PS2. I had to know. Sure,
That's the 1 second.
On this
Is it?
unrelated channel.
Let me get it. Yeah.
You sure ain't no Keto King. On this unrelated channel, one other video caught my subconscious for some inextricable reason. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Metro Boomin, A$AP Rocky, Roy C, Am I Dreaming cover piano. It's a home recording from whatever equipment the artist had lying around. To my surprise, one comment existed on this ghost of a video. This isn't how it goes. Face with one eyebrow raised emoji, skull emoji, loudly crying face emoji. He replies. I held my breath, unknowing of what war remains I was about to uncover. But inside was something much more profound. What's wrong with it? I'm just trying to make some good music. Make some good music. A most declaration of creative fulfillment. In this moment, I was reminded of every person's individual love, and I say that without a shred of joking irony. Here I was, observing some helplessly overshadowed lone tree, lost in the overgrown forest of his platform, having bunny hopped my way from a channel whose entire existence stems from this one trivial 20-year-old piece of entertainment. Here lied a love so easily disregardable, yet a love nonetheless. Who's to say that any one love is less important than the other?
Racing Canes.
aren't we all just trying to make some good music?
Yeah.
I think I'd almost taken it as my duty to uncover all of these hidden loves. That's what I was searching for all this time. Not more good music, not some pioneer self-satisfaction from discovery, but for genuine human love. This vicarious passion exploration is what dominated my life since the summer before 8th grade. This is also what started my obsession with list making. Album charts and YouTube playlists were a start, though it definitely spiraled out of control once I got deeper into using Rate Your Music a few years later. Lists are great though. Knowing what groceries to get, knowing what exercises to do and at what weight, knowing what household chores I should probably be taking care of today. They're fantastic combatants against the limited nature of human memory. At one point, my list of albums to not forget about reached upwards of 2,500 entries. That's a lot of groceries. Of course, I had a similar list for video games, one for movies, one for TV shows, one for books. I was building myself a Costco that exclusively carried digital vouchers for an experience in a jar, and I was determined to tear down that Costco brick by brick. Brick by brick. Steel panel by steel panel? What are buildings made of nowadays? Nowadays. Back in my day, buildings used to be made out of mud. Over the course of my Costco assembly
like
and disassembly,
midnight
a lot of
20.
non-Costco things
Holy
happened.
crap.
I graduated high school. I experienced a rainbow spectrum of inter- and intrapersonal relationships. I got a full-time job. I moved twice. I started learning Japanese. I continued to make a lot of my own personal creative projects, concluding with Piracy's Menu, which is an album I'll touch a bit more on later. I'm sure a lot of the people watching this video have similar experiences in managing bulky backlogs and boundless bookmarks. Maybe some of yours already include Masked Dancers, or maybe you've considered adding Masked Dancers to yours upon seeing some dork making a video like this. I'm sure you've looked at your Mount Everestian pile of yeah, I'll get to that eventually, and gotten a bit overwhelmed. Like, has anyone ever seen the light at the end of a backlog? Yeah, I have. But like, not really, right? Like, surely, but like, actually, yeah, I have. That's not to say I'm done searching for new projects to engage with, but I no longer live according to a script. I'm kind of living to a script right now, recording this video. Or don't think about that too hard. When I come across something new or remember something old, I can take advantage of that immediate motivation rather than shelving it away for it to potentially go stale. So how do you get to that point? Well, the obvious answer is just listen to all the albums, play all the video games, watch all the movies, do all the things you have in those lists. It took me 8 years of slowly chipping away every day, sometimes all day, to get to where I am now. But in addition to that, like, how many of the items on your list do you actually care about? Do you really want to listen to this album, or were you just struck by shiny new thing syndrome? And let's be real. Do you really need a personal sticky note reminder to check out Tears of the Kingdom or Radiohead? I don't think anything or anyone is gonna let you forget about Tears of the Kingdom or Radiohead. An exercise I performed was to remove an entry I was on the fence about. If I continued thinking about it days later, maybe I should put it back on the list and check it out eventually. If I forgot about it, well, I'd forgotten about it. And that was that. And while I was experiencing something, if I became disinterested, I just allowed myself to move on to something else. I listened to albums while doing work for my job. I had TV shows play while making and eating meals. I watched videos at 1.5 or 2 times speed to get through them faster. I followed walkthroughs of video games to have a straighter, simpler course through the experience. I skipped ahead in songs I had a pretty good idea how I felt about. I frankly just got rid of a lot of entries from thinking about what genuinely interested me. Given enough time and deliberate effort, I was able to whittle everything down, checking off the entirety of my list, and I felt like I had completed everything. But what had I become? Give me a sheet of lined paper and I'll fill up every line. Give me a sheet of printer paper and I'll make my own lines in filling up the page. At one point, I kept a journal chronicling what I did every day. My original intention in doing so was to look back at what I had written at the end of each day to get a good sense of how much I had accomplished. I had been struggling with the feeling of not being productive, and I figured this would be a surefire way of proving myself that I did do a lot each day. And everyone talks about the benefits of keeping a journal. This is what my pages turned into. Each line is a day's worth of activity. What started as a good way to be proud of how much I did each day quickly turned into a challenge of filling up the line, which may sound good, forcing yourself to do a certain number of things each day so as not to stagnate, but these intentionally unreadable scribbles designate nothing of that sort. If I listened to another album, that would get its own space. If I briefly watched a YouTube video from a creator I hadn't watched a video from that day, that would get its own space. I began subconsciously forcing myself to disregard the legitimate enjoyment in partaking in a creative project merely so as to fill out a line in a page of a notebook that I would never look at again, with chicken scratch even an archaeolexicologist couldn't decipher. No longer was I allowing myself to genuinely experience the passions of others, but by this point, with how accustomed I'd become to having multiple pieces of media playing at once, half listening, half watching, half living, with nothing to fill that other half, I didn't know if I could anymore. I've used media to shut out the world for so long that I'd forgotten to let their worlds in. My heart no longer fills itself with the brilliant ideas of grandeur upon hearing any music I don't have some predisposed "I should love this" idea towards. I had normalized my reduction of genuine labors of love and experiences meant to be slowly absorbed into a chore list. Each album or video game only a foothold on my way to the peak of some mountain. Upon reaching that peak, a sense of nothingness I had never experienced infiltrated me. Looking down the mountain, everything just looks like a bunch of rocks. I had been so focused
Don't sleep,
on
guys.
completing the journey as soon as possible, but
Good night.
at what cost had I reached this finish line? What was my purpose in achieving this goal? Merely to be able to say, yeah, I've consumed all this content? What good was that declaration if I rushed through everything so quickly I was unable to form any meaningful thoughts? My main goal had deformed from appreciating the loves of others into getting them off my list. How awful of a statement is that, getting them off my list? What kind of love of my own does that show? I don't think I could say that I loved music if my only reason for listening to it had become getting it over with so I didn't have to think about it anymore. You know what I get over with so I don't have to think about anymore? Dentist appointments. My job. Here I was turning the most important part of my life into an errand. A bother. So it shocked me at this feeling of absolute nothingness that infiltrated me upon my completion of dealing with all of these nuisances. For roughly 8 years, I had been striving towards this moment, slowly chipping away every day, sometimes all day. 8 years I had a clear outline of what to do with my time. The most major part of my life had ended. I learned this is what's referred to as arrival fallacy, this false assumption that achieving a goal will result in continued happiness. Throughout my life, the importance of setting goals has been carved into my mind deeper and deeper, but never what to do when you reach those goals. I think because the goals I've been encouraged to set have always had some unspokenly clear benefit, such as finishing your homework every night or losing X number of pounds. What was the benefit in clearing a backlog? I think there were 2 mistakes I made.
Can
The
you go back
first
like 10
was
seconds?
treating a hobby as
stream
something
lagged and I
that
couldn't see what was going on.
doing your homework every night or losing X number of pounds. What was the benefit in clearing a backlog? I think there were 2 mistakes I made. The first was treating a hobby as something that has a final goal, something to be completed. No hobby is a line segment, a marathon with a fixed distance, a road trip with a set destination. The second was taking that notion of a pastime's finish line and letting it eclipse any other reason I had for engaging with the hobby to begin with. Masked Dancers was an album that affected how I had developed as a person, an album that made me cry disgusting, juvenile, yet real tears on many occasions, an album that practically acted as the symbol for my love of appreciating the loves of others through creative works, and it had become a step equal to all of the other steps on this staircase I climbed to some preconceived yet non-existent heaven. How many works of art had I finished once and eternally shelved? How many labors of love had I been paying attention to only halfway? How many thousands of hours of human creative struggle had I converted into single-digit minute playtimes? The one assumption I've made throughout this entire video and most of my life is that all creative output has value. While every fiber of my being wants this to be true, it's unfortunately often that outlook gets stress tested. Modern social media platforms have no problem highlighting this issue with as many reused PNGs of shocked expressions, red arrows and circles, and auto-generated subtitles as it can. Art has always been business, but looking at the lifetime's worth of content made cheaply and quickly for the express purpose of staying relevant, making money, providing more slop to the pig house, I question if this is really a creative perspective worth experiencing. Dime a dozen lo-fi hip-hop beats, reaction videos, obviously trying to copy Mr. Beast and or Sniper Wolf and or whatever the current meme of the week is. Was there ever any love here? Scouring the videos YouTube thinks I want to watch and being greeted by countless music mixes and clip compilations barely enjoyable even as background noise makes me wish my middle school self would have gotten interested in camping instead of this refreshable hell I'm mentally glued to look at in 4K. Any fan-made relaxing music mix or playlist that I get recommended, instant don't recommend this channel. On principle. If I want to relax, I'm not at the computer. I don't think this is YouTube's fault. Different people have different tastes, and clearly a lot of people want music mixes for studying and clip compilations. Podcasts are still a huge thing, and no podcast is interesting enough to actually pay attention to. Therefore, I think it's perfectly fine to relegate certain media to a second monitor or mealtime experience. Go crazy rewatching shows you love or listening to videos in the background. Frankly, do whatever you want. I'm not the art appreciation police. I merely hope that people can respect the work that goes into creative projects, even if for things that you don't like, as well as not turning your engagement with art into what feels like a job. Even YouTube videos. I feel like YouTube as a platform is one that people write off as a hub for stupid memes or, you know, this. That dismissal is largely what stopped me from continuing to make videos following the release of my album Piracy's Menu. Why spend all these hours, all this passion and love on projects that get unlovingly discarded almost immediately after being released? I had worked on this album off and on for over 2 years. I crammed this 33.5-minute slaughterfest with 2,711 samples. Slaughterfest. I knew that even if you were carefully listening to every moment of this album, you'd still end up missing 80% of the work I put into this monster. You saw the spaceship, but you didn't see the screws. Eventually, I think I just liked the album enough to stop caring how other people experienced it. You don't need to see all the screws of a spaceship. It's my music, sure, but it's a part of your life, and you can do whatever you want with it, even completely ignoring it. It makes me very happy to see the positive reaction that project has received. It's my favorite thing I've ever done, and I can see it staying that way for a while. I hope this minor section doesn't come off as too egotistical. If you hate that album, like, I understand. Give me 5 years and I probably will too, buddy. Though, coming off such a major project, I was immediately thrust into the negative feelings towards anything creative that I touched on earlier. I also felt creatively exhausted in every form of the word. Piracy's Menu was this exact album that I wanted to see exist in the world that nothing currently existing resembled quite right. It was this album that I felt as if I had to make, which was a sensation I had never experienced before or afterwards. Up until that point, I simply made music and videos because I had fun doing so, and while I still have fun working on smaller personal projects, the magnitude of piracy's menu made everything following it feel unworthy. From that point forward, any creative journey I embarked on needed to have some sort of greater purpose, some reason for it to exist in the world. Every joyous moment of toiling around in Blender or sample hunting just for the love of creation was tranquilized by this intrusion of excessive ambition. If you're watching this video, that means I overcame that mental hurdle, or I was able to express my thoughts in a way that I deemed satisfactorily purposeful. I merely want to create something good. I've thought that I want to create something that makes a difference in someone. But how is any of that doable? What do those two sentiments even mean? I can't influence the connection between my creative work and how it's received. Sometimes I'm surprised the things I make connect with anyone in any way. Most of the time I'm just loosely organizing sounds that make my brain tingle. What's even the purpose of this video? Art is about sharing life experiences with others in a unique way, but here I am, old man rambling about trivial life stories and only occasionally mentioning the kinda sorta obscure album that most of the viewers of this video probably expected me to talk about. Today I come to the conclusion that I will never be fully satisfied with anything I make. This seems to be a fairly universal feeling among creatives and artists whose favorite activities are not making art and hating the art they've made. I don't like to overtly regurgitate commonly understood ideas, but if you'll permit me one more, I'd like to re-mention the much thrown around phrase that if you've gotten tired of a hobby, you should try remembering why you started doing it in the first place. I think this is a great piece of advice. It's one I've employed many times in the past few months, both regarding creating art and engaging with it. Looking at all the creative programs pinned to my taskbar and thinking about all the sites I've used daily to catalog all of my media consumption. I have no idea how any of it got there. I don't remember how I learned about FL Studio or Rate Your Music. I don't remember how I learned about the Brave Little Abacus. I have zero recollection as to why I started making videos on YouTube. I don't even remember how I learned what YouTube was. It is a fascinating outlier to me that I can so vividly remember my initial steps towards electronic spelunking as the 13-year-old coming across the Vaporwave Essentials Guide Ultra Edition and being disappointed when the next album he put into the YouTube search bar did not produce a neat full upload he could add to his ever-growing playlist. If nothing else, this outlier exemplifies just how critical this multimedia meandering hobby of mine had been for the half of my conscious lifespan that I have clear memories of. The start of this 8-year expedition is the map of glow-in-the-dark arrow stickers on the floor in the otherwise untraversable maze-like library of my mind. Clearly, the love in all of the projects I experienced had imparted a love into my own being. Coming to a wall where this hobby had run dry and lost my love presented more change than even moving 1,000 miles away from my parents had. They were the only two people left in my life after graduating early from high school and immediately losing contact with the friends who were more like people I sorta knew but didn't have any actual connection to. I then realized it was because this part of me that loved music had moved 1,000 miles away from myself. From my life experiences, I know that it's hard to lose touch with someone else in any capacity, whether temporary or permanent. But it's so much harder to lose touch with yourself. It's hard to fail in loving something you know you should. And it's even harder when that thing is yourself. I had locked myself out from the largest part of who I am, of who I had been. And for that I was not upset, was not sad, I wasn't anything. It truly felt like there was nothing else for me. I had released my best work out into the world. I had taken care of the rest of me. What more is there to say? When I reached these introspective and existential thoughts, where else did I turn but right back into trying to engage with media? I hadn't known anywhere else to go for as long as I can remember. I mainly tried looking for pieces that were based in themes related to the self-disconnect I was experiencing, but unsurprisingly, I still felt like I wasn't making any progress. I tried distancing myself entirely from content-consuming activities and trying something new, but shamefully, even that led me back to where I started. I thought about learning more about astronomy or some field of mathematics, both subjects which interested me. I couldn't look a YouTube video in the screen or a textbook in the spine. I thought about committing more to my Japanese studies, which had waned in intensity the past few months. Study through immersion is literally about consuming content. And I wasn't gonna talk to people. Guys really will do anything to avoid relying on someone else to get through their emotional turmoil. What was I or anyone else expecting from backlog clearing? Was there some purpose of life revelation we were expecting to realize? And I'm not just saying listening to music or playing video games or whatever just for the fun of it. I mean specifically in getting done with the backlog. Finishing 250 games, how I finished 128 games in 2022. Is this number get bigger, another one off the list, satisfaction, the entire purpose of engaging with creative content nowadays? We've distorted art appreciation into a hot dog eating contest. I think the main cause, at least in my case, is a desire to be done. To not have to worry about this mountain of I'll get to it eventually, and maybe to actually check out something that gets recommended to me. For freedom. To approach a passion project and fully absorb the love it emanates. Perhaps it's to feel as if I've truly accomplished something. Life is an eternally unchecked list of things I wish I could have done. But here's one I was able to check off. In the least morbid or edgy ways possible, I think a lot about death. Think about what would happen if today, biking to the gym, I get run over and everything instantly stops. Think about what my life would have led up to. Think about what purpose my life would have served. Think about what purpose even means as seasons flow into each other and everything eventually disintegrates unrememberable. Think about if there were no life, no consciousness, no anything in the universe. I think about how that void would go unnoticed. Aquanaut's Holiday is unnoticeable. Easily swept into the field of weird PS1 games that aren't LSD Dream Emulator. Based purely around exploration, though limited in scale to any open world game that succeeded its release in 1995. An underwater world presented with no guidance on controlling the stiffly moving vessel, how any of the game's systems work, or what the player is supposed to do. And that underwater world itself barely on par with a tech demo, showcasing sharply edged seafloor through narrow field of view and meager render distance. Criticisms based on the existence of Subnautica are inevitable. Even Blue, Legend of Water, and Diver's Dream, both released on the same console, constitute more traditionally fleshed out underwater exploration experiences. Aquanaut's Holiday is not my favorite game of all time. Aquanaut's Holiday is not a game I want to finish or know everything about. It's not even a game I want to play most of the time. Aquanaut's Holiday is an empty game, but one where I always experience something new. The lack of any in-game guidance hammers in the nail of the criticality of finding things out for yourself. No story, no characters, no clear objective. The manual encourages 美しい海底の景色を楽しんだりなど、あなたの好きなようにあれこれ自由に楽しめるのです。This polygonal playground does not beg to be cared about. Instead, it waits quietly for the player to introduce themselves to it. It waits for someone who is truly interested in seeking it out. It wants its secrets to be found, but does not outright explain those secrets, nor the systems necessary in uncovering those secrets, for it understands the delight of exploration and discovery. The one thing I will explain for Aquanaut's Holiday is its feature of point markers. Shoot one out and you'll be able to warp back to that spot again from the menu. In a game so loudly chock full of empty space, the ability to mark a spot wherever and return to it whenever seems not only helpful for, but necessary for Enigma unearthing enjoyment. Mental landmarks can only accomplish so much for rediscovering those uniquely memorable experiences in such a barren landscape. I will never use this feature. I don't think rediscovery should be simplified. Aquanaut's Holiday is a game about exploring the obscure, so what purpose does it serve if I remove that obscurity and condense my experience down to a tourist's bigly landmarked map? Keeping this experience as unknown to myself as possible preserves its love. Understanding that I will never see everything there is to see is a peace nothing else has ever come close to. Aquanaut's Holiday makes me think of the joy of new experiences, though also that it's okay to let some things go half-experienced. I think restraining myself from something can be a greater act of love than forcibly extracting all of its essence. I think about the ease of mind a void can create and the importance of embracing a perfect nothingness. I think about all of the corners that I will never stiffly guide my vessel towards. I think about all of the unknown secrets in their most glorious waiting rooms, solitarily dreaming of lotus flowers dancing in a blindly beautiful, all-encompassing light. I think about all of this, and I love everything again. I've never agreed with the sentiment of wanting to experience something for the first time again. Whenever I find myself greeted by the simple guitar lines that mark Masked Dancer's opening, I'm reminded of all of the life I've lived alongside these 49 minutes of music. The mountains of tender-hearted connections, of bright days, of unsure nights, of new beginnings, of echoed times. My entire existence is overpassing me. Had I merely listened to this album once and checked it off a list never to return, I wouldn't have given it the time it so dearly needed to resonate with me to the level it has. That's not to say I want to force myself to re-listen, replay, rewatch every bit of media that I engage with. I definitely don't. However, giving up on a series or dropping a video game is such a mentally difficult process to accept because I want to be able to fully appreciate everyone's loves. At the very least, I want to feel present and spend my time authentic to how I want to be spending it. Roughly 8 years after the Brave Little Abacus was formed, Adam released For Those Who Think You under his new band, Me and Capri. This was the last project I listened to in order to finish my music backlog. The final steel panel to be removed from the foundation of what I had been doing the past 8 years. I couldn't think of a more perfect project to end with. Taking the last step towards moving on from a core part of who I was and sharing those feelings to the artist who practically represented that core part of me. Here, the Brave Little Abacus was no more. Here, I was no more. Though had I really moved on? Although Me and Capri is matured and mellowed compared to the Bravely Abacus, it's still characteristically Adam. Although I had lost touch with such an important hobby, I'm still characteristically me. Even if I were to never seek out another obscure creative project, the wonderful everything of this cross-section of my life will always be there for me, waiting to be unearthed by the double click of an MP3 or the power button on a PlayStation. I've begun to hate the question of what do you want to do with your life? I've learned there is no singular goal anyone is supposed to accomplish, no one reason why we exist. I based my self-worth on an obsession of completing art. My happiness was unsympathetically torn from me when confronted with the idea that my life had also been completed. Masked Dancers and how it balloons to the breaking point with unrestrained passion and self-expression makes me want to live forever so I can experience everything and get to know everyone and love all that there is to be loved. Though I do not fear death, as I understand time is finite and there is only so much I'm capable of loving. I hope to use up all of my, albeit limited, amount of love to create a positive impact on those around me, in hopes that they can continue to circulate their love on those around themselves, repeating infinitely. And if I'm somehow capable of doing that, then I think I'll truly have lived forever. At the end of the day, I don't have some big mic drop reveal, and I hold some self-doubt regarding the flowery prose concerning the mysteries of life that I've interspersed here. How much can I talk about life if I've only lived 21 years of it? And is there anything different about my life from the rest of the chronically online, socially withdrawn nerds throwing their inconsequential opinions on everything into immediately forgotten about digital landfills? But what makes my passions and memories any less valuable than anyone else's? There are so many wonderfully amazing people who have all lived wonderfully amazing lives. I want to feel everyone's loves. I want to share my own loves. I just trying to make some good music. I love half shouting, half mumbling along with songs because I don't actually know the words. I love the unfiltered passion oozing from creative works that aren't scared to be weird or show their imperfections. I love music, and though I cannot possibly convey what Masked Dancers means to me in a way that will result in you equally enjoying the album, I hope that what I have been able to convey is understandable and potentially connectable to something equal in your life. We all individually have our own Masked Dancers. At least I hope we all do. For all of my personal creative endeavors, I merely want to share my own experiences for others to make of them however they decide to. The big difficulty in sharing any recommendations with anyone is that it so often turns into a doubly one-sided conversation where each party merely offers their own loves and doesn't or can't try to accept the loves of the other party, speaking without listening. Perhaps if you take anything from this video, it's to truly share the loves of those around you. If you have the time, actually listen to the song they posted in the Discord channel. Don't just post your own favorite song, completely sweeping them under the rug. What I love more than finding my own new favorites is seeing someone else find one of their new favorites in something I love. Reading positive reviews and seeing nice comments on something I love gives me a sense that I'm not alone in this life. A new spark for video making has been ignited in me through realizing this desire to share my loves, though the throwaway ability of recommendations, especially those delivered via excessive video essays, makes that a difficult fire to keep burning. I am another stranger in your world, and I have no desire to make you rethink anything, though perhaps some small piece of this overly written video monologue has helped you in some way. Maybe my previous work, that which I look back on fondly or that which I cannot stand to think about, has had a similarly vague effect on the real life of some quiet observer. And so Adam and Zach and Andrew and everyone else involved in the creation of this strange little masterpiece, this is my at last spoken message that I am forever grateful for the work you released into the world all those years ago. For the eventual shared orbit it took with my life and the inseparable fusion that has been created between our two bodies. For some semblance of purpose it has created in an originally purposeless existence. This idea of purpose is one so fragile yet so critical to our ability to attempt to face, let alone love, each day as it comes. Despite our own lone tree deaths and the universe at large ceasing to exist, the unnoticed void that follows, we still have today. And one day at a time is the best we can do. If the past is only good when we make it good, then the present must work the same way, since it's immediately destined to become the past. You don't have a good day, you make it a good day. And one day at a time is the only way we can do that. Things never get better or worse. They merely change. You change because of everything else surrounding you, and everything else that will forever remain unchanging, and that will hide its godliness from you unless you're willing to meet it and know it and love it.
Thank you so much. John Simpson, please.
Love you, man.
That's a lot of groceries. That's a lot of groceries. That's a lot of groceries. That's a lot of groceries.
Are
That's
you
a lot.
kidding?
That's a lot of groceries. That's a lot of groceries. That's a lot of groceries.
Oh my god.
This is gonna be the thing that I'm gonna like say in my head over and over again, like just randomly. That's a lot of groceries.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That
Was a lot of groceries.
that was the best like end to it. Oh my god. That I did not expect the video to go that way. And I loved it. That's gotta be like S tier, dude. Oh my god. Oh, that was amazing. Oh my god. That was such a good video. Oh my god. Holy Alright. It's almost midnight, so we don't really have much time to see the next video, but this, oh my god. Wow. And this is like the only video on his channel that's really like kinda like this, right? Yeah. Alright, I guess we can spin.